morning all, and welcome back to Talking Shite on Facebook Live, and we're live on YouTube as well. Of course, our YouTube channel started up very recently. It's going good guns so far. So if you're watching on there, thanks for tuning in. We're on Facebook as well, of course, as usual. There's plenty to get through on this live today. Another weekend of Premiership football has gone. With me to do that is Mark Hendry and Aidan Scott. How are you, chaps?
I'm good, mate. How are you? Echo.
Bad. Yeah, okay. We'll start with Celtic yesterday in Perth, 4-1 to Celtic against St Johnstone. I mean, the Hoops are simply unbeatable at the moment. Really, that they've swatted another Premiership outfit away. And the Saints yesterday. I mean, Hendo, I've run out of things to say really about Celtic. It's kind of same every week. They kind of steamroller past everyone in their path. They've just picked up another 3 points. It's a routine win really for them, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it's getting to a point now where you're like, well, if Celtic aren't, 3-4 up at half time, you're like, well, it's an off day for them.
Wrong. There's a crisis.
No, they were good. I thought decent in the first half, and that's saying something considering they were 3-1 up.
Yeah.
They kind of slowed off in the second half, which has been sort of the last two matches. I think against Livingston they did the same thing, which won't please Postecoglou, I don't imagine. But I mean, the fans, a 3-0 and a 4-1. You can't really complain too much.
Yeah, absolutely. Aidan, I just wanted to highlight Aaron Moy. He's just in stellar form just now. He scored a beautiful chip, obviously, yesterday that delighted the Celtic fans. He's got 6 goals in his last 9 games now for Celtic in all competitions. He's probably in the form of his life, really. He had such a good World Cup, of course, with Australia and Qatar. And I suppose it's testament to his attitude, because I suppose when he first joined, he was sort of in and out of the team. Fans were maybe a wee bit unsure about him. But he's probably one of the first names in the team sheet now, isn't he?
Oh, definitely. I mean, it was maybe just a case. I remember there was a sort of he was sort of in a strange situation before he came to Celtic, wasn't he, regarding his former club and so on. So I'm not sure, how often he'd been training or whatever. So maybe that explained why he was a wee bit in and out of the team. But as you said, since the World Cup, he was great for Australia at the World Cup, and since then he's probably been. I'd say, with him and Greg Taylor, those two guys are, he's one of the 2 best players in the team at the moment. As you say, he's got to be one of the first names on the team sheet. I can't see him being displaced anytime soon, with the form he's in. It's quite funny because it's obviously when you see him getting interviewed, he is very clearly shy. Media, and so I thought it was quite funny, Greg Taylor making that point, that he just needs to stop playing so well, but he's going to have a lot more interviews to do, the way he's going. But he just seems to be irreplaceable at the moment, and I'm sure Celtic fans will be sort of keen for his future to be resolved, won't they?
Absolutely, he's in excellent form. Just on St Johnstone, Hendo, I mean, given Celtic's sort of ridiculous form just now, you can't really criticise him too much. St Johnstone, I mean, Andy Considine, he did have a nightmare afternoon yesterday, I suppose, with their own goal and obviously getting red carded as well. I suppose these games are just kind of free passes for teams like St Johnstone and Kilmarnock, Livingston. I mean, as defeatist as it sounds, I mean, no one's really going to bat an eyelid when you're going to beat Celtic in the form that they're in. What would you make of that?
No, I think to a point you're right. And remember when St Mirren beat them earlier in the season, there was, it was Stephen Robinson's the greatest manager of all time, to get the points off Celtic. So it's definitely, I felt really bad for Andy Considine watching it. Because I think that's the second game against Celtic in a row where he scored an OG, if I'm not mistaken.
All right.
Which I might be. I'm almost certain it's the second.
I mentioned something about that the other day.
That's some stuff.
It might have been my report, so that could be wrong too. But no, I did feel bad for him because there was little he could have done for Kyogo's or the Celtic's first. And then the red card is kind of, it's harsh. Callum Davidson said it was harsh at the end of the game. But I mean, the letter of the law, just because you're 3-1 down at the time with a couple of seconds to go doesn't really mean much. If it's a red card, I suppose it's a red card. You would still get sent off for a high boot in the chest anywhere else on the pitch. So why not no last man? But I did feel a wee bit sorry for him. To your point, I don't know if it was a 4-1 game. I don't really think it was. I thought it was quite harsh on St Johnstone at a 3-1 game because, Celtic were fast in the first half. They started well. But again, as I said to you earlier on, the second half, they really sort of took the foot off the gas. They've obviously got it in them to make it 3-4-1, but they once they had the lead from the first half, they kind of felt as if, right, the game's won, we've got other games coming up, we can maybe calm it down a wee bit. But then again, I don't know, it's hard to kind of judge because, again, there's no midweek fixtures now.
Yeah.
For a couple of weeks anyway.
Yeah.
So Ange, you would imagine, would have been, demanding them be their kind of usual relentless selves. But St Johnstone were on a bit of a hiding to nothing really in the second half.
Yeah. Just before we move on to Rangers, are we fans of the rock, paper, scissors battle?
I loved it.
Like that? Something different, isn't it?
I loved it.
It's funny to see that. I mean, both those guys are good on free kicks anyway, aren't they? So it's
Well, that's the thing, isn't it? It's
not enough way to decide who takes it.
Aye. It was like Juninho against Shinsuke Nakamura if they were doing it.
Yeah.
I mean, but not, okay, right. That was maybe a wee bit too far, but two good set piece takers. It's not as if one was going to be particularly, one's a 10-star, one's a 5-star. They're pretty, level.
Yeah.
I just thought it was funny, and it was a nice wee thing for Sky Sports to catch as well. Because these wee moments on the telly you don't always, or these wee moments in games you don't always see, so I quite enjoyed it.
Yeah, it was certainly unique. All right, we'll go to Ibrox. 2-1 Rangers against Ross County. It was a pretty underwhelming display from the Light Blues. Michael Beale is still unbeaten, and that's his 7th win in a row as a new manager. Aidan, it seemed like Rangers were pretty wasteful on Saturday. I think they had 26 shots in the match, and obviously scoring only 2 goals, and obviously took a deflected free kick in the end to win the game from Barisic. I suppose at the end of the day, I mean, there's been a couple of performances like that from Michael Beale's team when he's sort of took over, a wee bit underwhelming. But at the end of the day, the points matter, and he's still unbeaten.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things. I'm sure Michael Beale will obviously he'll be disappointed with aspects of the performance, undoubtedly. But I think, at the same time, he'll be glad to see that his team, despite the fact when Rangers are maybe having off days like that, they're still able to get the victory, aren't they? That's the kind of thing that obviously the title race is pretty much over. But going into next season, if Rangers can keep doing that, even when they're playing not so well, but they can get the win, that's going to be vital in the title race, isn't it? So Michael Beale will know going forward that at least they've got the players have got the determination or whatever it is they need to sort of grind out the result. I know it's a cliche to talk about that, but it's those exact type of things that can help you win a title. And so, Michael Beale, as I said, you'll be disappointed with aspects of the performance, but I mean, you're not going to turn down 3 points, are you? It's obviously ultimately what it's all about.
Yeah, and Hendo, I think Tillman and Cantwell, I think they were the sort of standouts on Saturday. They also combined for the first goal. It's pretty clear to see that they're the sort of brains behind the Rangers attack. Just on Cantwell, obviously he's just signed. He's had a couple of games. He's looked okay. Do you think he's going to be a success in Glasgow?
I think so. I've really liked the look of him the last couple of games, actually. He provided that. It was a really good assist for Tillman's goal on Saturday. I just think he looks like he's played at the Premier League level.
Right.
Do you know what I mean when I say that? I think he's got that kind of air about him where you go to Ibrox and you go to Parkhead or Ibrox, Celtic or Rangers, and you kind of have to have that arrogance about you in a way. I mean, Joey Barton had a different sort of arrogance coming up, but you understand what I mean. Having come from the Premier League to
he looked pretty confident on the ball, didn't he?
And I think when you play in front of 50,000 Rangers fans, I think you have to have that. If you kind of shrink into your shell a wee bit, they're going to find you out. And Cantwell, I don't know. I just think he's looked really sort of alert. I think he didn't play very much for Norwich for one reason or another under any of the last 3 managers they've had, 3 or 4. Daniel Farke, Dean Smith, and now David Wagner. I might be missing one. I'm not sure. But for one reason or another, he wasn't their pick. So he's come here and obviously spoke to Mick Beale before he signed, and he obviously sold the move pretty well. He sold a long-term project to him, and for a guy who's not really played, I mean, that would have been music to his ears. And I think there's a creative freedom that Michael Beale has given his sort of forward players. You look at Ryan Kent; he's maybe not hit the heights that he probably should be, but that's not for want of trying, and it's not because Michael Beale's not giving him the kind of the opportunity to do so. So a player like Todd Cantwell, all he needs is maybe a manager who trusts him and allows him to do what he wants to do, as opposed to kind of shackling him a wee bit. So I think Michael Beale's the manager to do that for him. And I think if Rangers can see the best of Todd Cantwell, then they'll be certainly next season, as he kind of alluded to earlier on, that the league's, it's going to take a hell of a turn for Rangers to win that this season. But next season, if they keep hold of Tillman, they get Cantwell, a fully fit, fully firing Todd Cantwell, Ryan Kent on form. Don't know who the striker's going to be next year, but you never know. I think Todd Cantwell will be a success ultimately, even though he's done well when it's only early.
Yeah, he's done well so far. I mean, it could turn out to be a bargain. I mean, it was a pretty low transfer fee as well. So, remains to be seen. But yeah, just in Ross County, Aidan, I think they gave him a good account of themselves on Saturday. I think Malcolm Mackay was pretty pleased that they ran Rangers close. Obviously, they were very unlucky with that Barisic free kick in the second half that got Rangers the win. Jordan White, he was in the score sheet for them, and he's obviously got competition now with Eamon Brophy and Simon Murray joining the attack. I was quite impressed with those two signings that Ross County made. They've really come out of January looking stronger, in my opinion. Do you think that maybe gives them an edge over the sort of relegation rivals, bringing in those two players? Premiership experience. Murray was firing in for Queen's Park as well. Jordan White's a good option. They've got options in attack.
Aye. Oh no, I think it definitely is. I mean, obviously, you always hear managers talking about it's good to have competition for places, because the guys that are fighting out with each other are only going to raise their levels in order to stay in the team. So, when you're up against, especially, I mean, I think, I'm not sure if he's still there after the weekend's fixtures, but Simon Murray was obviously joint top scorer in the Championship when he made the move. So, I know it's a level up there now, but to have that level of competition, and obviously, as you said as well, Eamon Brophy's got plenty of experience, it should do well. It should serve Ross County rather well going forward. And just as you say, I think compared to I'm sure we'll get into them later, but I think when you compare it to Motherwell, for example, at the moment, I just think Ross County have got probably that little bit more about them now after the transfer window. And I mean, I would be surprised to see them go down now. I think they've probably got enough to just to hang in there and sort of go well. I mean, as you were saying, it was a good performance on Saturday, albeit they lost. I mean, I think I saw Jordan White last night. He was saying that they had Rangers worried, and I suppose it was quite a nervy finish towards the game on Saturday there, wasn't it? So Ross County will only take that going forward as well, and say that we might have lost, but nervy for Rangers, and they're unbeaten. So it can only be good for them going forward.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Okay, we'll go to Tawdry. Aberdeen 3, Motherwell 1. Finally, the Dons securing a League One. It's only their second since December. But the Steelmen, their horrific form continues under Stevie Harrell. Hendo, we'll start with Aberdeen. I mean, Majowski, he got 2 in the game on Saturday. Back in form. That's 3 in his last 2 games. 2 really classy finishes as well. Really deft finishes. Punishing Motherwell's really schoolboy defending, you have to say. But I suppose it's important he's firing all cylinders, Majowski. I think there was a wee period where he was, when Aberdeen's form was really wretched, he wasn't scoring many goals. But you know, he's a top number 9, isn't he? And if you give him service, then he's going to put it in the back of the net, really.
Yeah, I mean, to be completely honest, I don't know how many times I rewound his second goal. I've watched it. I mean, literally countless times. That the pass into him, and then it's just a wee first touch finish. It's absolutely brilliant. I've watched it again so many times. It just proves his talents. And then obviously his first goal was a wee kind of dink over the goalkeeper.
Yeah, that's it.
Motherwell looked really poor defensively, but that kind of game where Aberdeen make them look poor or Motherwell make Aberdeen look really good could and probably is coming at the perfect time for Aberdeen.
Right.
Confidence is really low. You can tell that, or you could tell that away to Darvel, away to Hibs. Obviously, Jim Goodwin paid for it with his job, and Barry Robson and his team have gone in to do the kind of interim job. I don't know whether it'll be open to him, whether it's his job to lose or what. I don't know, but that kind of result on Saturday would really have done a lot for Aberdeen. And it's a kind of win that, again, they made it look easy, or Motherwell made it look made it look difficult. But Miovski looks a top player. I mean, it's quite obvious that they spent a bit of money on him. I think it was 500k, which could be if he can start from now, from January, for the next 6 months, or for the next however, I can't never remember from whether it's 5 or 6 months, whatever you call it, by the end of the season. But if he can score goals now and he can finally find his form now, he'll look a bargain if he takes Aberdeen from where they are now to top 4, top 6 even, really. If they can kind of cement that, considering how poor they've been recently.
Yeah, just on Motherwell, Aidan, I mean, as I said, the defending, as Hendo said as well, the defending was just shocking, really, for the goals. They're just in dire form. They've got no league wins since the 29th of October, which is astounding, really. I don't know, I've got a question here. I mean, are they paying the price maybe for handing such an inexperienced manager the job? Stephen Hamilton's his first job, and as a manager, he's obviously brought in a lot of players in January. Motherwell done a lot of business, so you never know. Things could turn around with the players that he's brought in. But I just thought that he's so inexperienced and he's never been in this position before. It's a really tough job for him, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a really tough situation to come in. Well, when he initially got the job, it was already a tough situation as it was, so he's came into that, and I know he had a few decent performances, and that was what got him the permanent sort of role. But since then, it's just looked really difficult for him. As he said, some of the defending the other day was just shocking. I mean, I think it was Aberdeen's second goal. I think it was Callum Slattery. It gave the ball away, wasn't it, initially? And then it was just Aberdeen were just able to. That was far too easy for Aberdeen. I mean, it's one of those ones you could say that they're maybe paying the price for handing it to an inexperienced manager, but at the time, I don't remember there being like a whole lot of candidates around for the Motherwell job either, given that they were into the season then. So it was one of those ones where probably between a rock and a hard place, and Hamill knew the club and so on, so it's maybe it seemed like, well, that would be the sensible choice at the time. But I mean, even with all the business that they've done in January, they don't look to be improving. And I mean, if I was a Motherwell fan, I'd be really concerned right now, because as we've just been talking about, the likes of Ross County look as if they've come out the window, significantly better. And those are the teams that they're going to be up against probably come the end of the season. So I mean, I don't know what Motherwell will do just now, but it doesn't seem like there's an easy way out of it, unfortunately for them. So it's going to be it's just a difficult time for them at the moment. It's
funny because I remember just on Stevie Hamill. And by the way, their defending for the Duke goal is absolutely atrocious as well. Just need to throw that in there. But on Stevie Hamill, it's funny because this will probably say more about me than it will about anyone else. But I remember Motherwell went to Celtic Park and they lost. And Not sure if it was Hamill's first game in charge as a permanent manager, or it was certainly close to it.
Yeah.
And I think it wasn't a hammering by any means, as far as I can remember. And I think I remember Stevie Hamill saying, you know, he was really disappointed that they didn't get at least a point from the game.
Yeah.
Remember, I was watching that interview and thinking, this guy, you know, if he's got the right sort of mindset, the right mentality to take over a job like that, where you know, going to Parkhead and being really annoyed that you didn't get a point off a team that are, you know, firing on all cylinders. I remember thinking to myself, you know, I think he could do a job, and I still, at the core of it, think he probably can do a job. I think I saw Mark Wilson on Sky Sports this morning saying that, you know, Motherwell should give him the time,
right?
And I tend to agree with that. But he'll definitely need to improve. It was just a small thing on the kind of mentality that he had when he was just in a brand new job, never managed at the high level before, and here he is, you know, raging that Motherwell didn't get something out of Celtic.
Yeah.
So I think there's probably something there. I don't know whether it's that there's been too much, you know, turnover in general this season at Motherwell. What you mentioned, the amount of players that they brought in, even just this month, brought in a few in the summer. Obviously, the early part of the season was tumultuous, to say the least.
Yeah.
So
I suppose though, in January, this was the first time Hamill could bring in his own players, because he missed the summer transfer window really, when the whole sort of Alexander debacle was going on. So I suppose maybe in a way you can see why the board has backed him quite significantly in January. Now it's his prerogative to go on and get the results now with, you know, the players that he's brought in.
Yeah, I agree. And as far as I'm led to understand it, that a couple of the targets that Motherwell had initially went elsewhere.
Yeah.
They wanted Jed Garner, who was a Fleetwood Town striker, and he went to Barrow. They wanted Blackburn Rovers' Dylan Markandé.
That's right. Yeah.
And he went to Aberdeen.
Yeah.
You know, so the players that Mikel Mandron, I think he got injured in his debut, and he's now out for a wee while.
Yeah.
So it's gone where they've had a number of names on their list of players to bring in. They've either gone somewhere else or they've been able to bring them in, and they've just not had that luck. So it remains to be seen. They've brought in a couple of players. I know Jack H was at Celtic, the kind of record goal scorer there. He's gone out and done bits and pieces elsewhere, scored goals down south. So they've got players there. They've brought players in that can obviously do a job. It just, will they do it for Stevie Hamill? Will they do it at Motherwell? Can they do it at this level? I guess we'll see.
A couple of VAR calls in this one as well. We'll just kind of skim over the Kennedy one. I mean, it was a pretty clear-cut penalty. It didn't take too long either for the VAR.
What do you mean? This is your shoulder?
It was a bit brazen to claim that was his shoulder that came off. It was ready. See him making faces at someone who was questioning him as well. You know?
Yeah, you could see that, you know, his sort of resignation after the decision.
We're saying before we come on here live that he's like, no, it was here. It's like, you know VAR is in place. You know that they're going to go to VAR and see exactly where it's hit you, and then obviously they give a penalty. He's like, all right, fair dues, which I just thought was brilliant. It's like, you know it's coming.
Obviously Aberdeen as well had a wee goal chopped off at the end. That made it 4 for them. It was actually a new signing, Pollock. Put it in the back of the net, but he was penalised for shirt pulling, really. And I mean, as we were saying again off air, you know, it was 50-50 really, Aidan. I mean, I suppose it was pretty harsh, you know, penalising the goal scorer. It was 50-50, wasn't it?
It was just they were sort of both at it, weren't they? It was a harsh decision, I say. But again, as you know, as Hendo also made the point off air, I mean, really the only difference would have been it would have been 4-1 rather than 3-1. So I suppose it didn't have any effect on the game as such. But it'll be more just Pollock will be disappointed that he hasn't, you know, that he wasn't getting that as a goal.
True. Yeah, on his debut. Yeah. Alrighty. Hearts 3, United 1, Tynecastle. I suppose Dundee United got off to a flyer in this one. They got up 1-0 through a Stephen Fletcher goal, but Hearts did step it up in the second half and got the victory. Obviously, Stephen Humphrys rounding it off with a absolutely ridiculous strike from his own half. Stunning effort, the audacity to do it as well. Just brilliant. But Hendo Jumbo's obviously bouncing back after the defeat to Rangers during the week. They I just lost my track of thought here. A couple of red cards as well to look at in this game. We'll get to that in a bit. But of course, we've got to start where it sort of ended really in the match. Stephen Humphrys, take a bow, son. Surely that's the goal of the season already. That's it. Just shut it off now. Just give him the word. That's it.
That is ridiculous, isn't it? You could see his sort of mind was racing as well when he could see Birighitti off his line. He's like, right, I'm just going to go for it.
Yeah.
And he hit it so perfectly, didn't he? He hit it
right in the corner as well, wasn't it?
He dinked it as well. It wasn't even just like a. It wasn't even just like a bloater up the park. Like it was it as well.
It was precision in that shot, but he hit it absolutely right on the money. It was perfect. And I did the sort of reaction this morning for Football Scotland, and he'd said, he was knackered. He just couldn't run it into the corner, so he thought, right, F this, I'm going to go for it. And it paid off. But Hearts looked good by comparison to how absolutely atrocious they were.
Yeah,
against Rangers. They were awful against Rangers, and they just they managed to step up a wee bit. Obviously, Stephen Fletcher scored first. It was a good finish, clever finish, and then another man who at Tynecastle goes to stand in front of the away supporters and give them a bit. Not that I don't want to cause any controversy or bring up anything that's not been brought up yet, but there was less kind of furore on that. Stephen Fletcher doing quite similar, but no. Hearts do look good. They do look like a team that won't sort of go 2, 3, 4, 5 games. Point here, drop points there, point here. They seem to be a kind of a unit. And Robbie Nielsen's obviously a really good manager, and he won't sort of allow any lengthy slip ups anyway. But they definitely look like the third best team in the country right now.
Oh yeah, without a doubt. Just a wee bit on Dundee United, Aidan. As I said, I think they started pretty well. They got the goal, and Liam Fox said at the end of the game, even though they got beat, that he was pretty pleased with his side's endeavours in the first half. The red card didn't really help them at all. No. We'll come to that in a bit. But they find themselves at the bottom of the table still. Obviously, it's really tight. I suppose, do you think there's maybe some similarities? I obviously brought the point up there with Stevie Hamill and Motherwell. Do you think there's maybe some similarities between, Fox and Hamill? I mean, both inexperienced managers. Fox is in his first sort of big managerial job as well. He just doesn't seem to be getting the best out of, what is a very good United squad. And we've said it all season, really, how baffling it is that they're at the bottom of the table with the squad they've got. But, I mean, do you think that'll sort of set them apart from maybe teams like Kilmarnock and Ross County of, Malky Mackay and Derek McInnes at the helm, vastly experienced Premiership managers. Could that be the difference come at the end of the season for these teams, like the Motherwell and United?
Yeah, it could well be. Yeah, I mean, I suppose if you're down in that situation where you're fighting at the bottom of the table like that, you are going to want a manager who's got that experience of not necessarily fighting relegation, but just a manager who has got experience, full stop, in the job. I suppose Malky Mackay and Derek McInnes have sort of seen it all before in that sense. So, yeah, if you would much rather have someone like that in charge, and that could be the difference maker come the end of the season. I think probably quite similarly to when Hamill came in, it was probably an aspect of like when Dundee United got rid of Jack Ross and they had to bring someone in. Probably wasn't a whole lot of people around, available at that time, and I know Liam Fox again was already there, so it made sense to give, he was there ready to sort of take the reins. And Dundee United have obviously sort of went that way in the past anyway with promoting their own. So, well, it's one of those ones we're going to have to wait and see. I do think, despite their very recent form, I think Dundee United have shown some improvement since the World Cup. I think that they certainly look better in their performances than they did before then. But of course, we're getting really down to the business end of the season now, aren't we? So it's like the things are going to have to start changing quickly. I would say that I would think they're probably more likely than Motherwell as things stand to stay up. Because I mean, just looking at the table now, I think they're on level points at the moment, aren't they? So
yeah.
But yeah, I mean, to answer your initial question, I mean, I would much rather that I had an experienced manager in charge if my club was in that situation.
The only sort of thing I've got, me, I love playing devil's advocate and fighting with folk. The only thing I would say is that, Gary, you can back me up or shut me up, I guess, because obviously with Derek McInnes in charge of Kilmarnock, experienced managers have bad habits at times, really bad habits when it comes to rotation, when it comes to picking players that they have a lot of loyalty to experienced players or players who maybe it could be in part their fault to an extent why a club is at rock bottom, or why a club is down in that battle in the first place. Whereas a new manager, a Stevie Hamill, a Liam Fox may well have fresher ideas, for want of a better phrase. I'm not saying that one manager is better than the other, not the slightest, because obviously Derek McInnes is very, very experienced. Malcolm Mackay is very, very experienced. But some of these managers just have too much loyalty to previous systems that they've used that just clearly aren't working at the club that they're at now, or with the players that they have now. Maybe they're not quite well equipped enough to play a certain style, and maybe experienced guys are sort of thinking, well, why aren't you able to do this? Whereas a younger guy might be going to the training pitch and saying, look, okay, this isn't working for us. I'm brand new in the job. Let's try this. Let's try and freshen up a bit. So that's the only sort of thing I can see that would go in the face of an experienced manager. But just after all that, I do think Motherwell, in particular, Stevie Hamill is in a bit of a
There's a couple of red cards to be discussed again. Edwards and Andy Halliday being the sort of big one. I suppose it's another decision where we really can't dispute it. It's Aidan. I mean, it's really high from Edwards. It's reckless. The studs are showing.
Yep.
Andy Halliday's foot is planted into the ground as well. I mean, on another sort of day, it could have been a lot worse for Halliday. It's a red all day, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I had no problems with it when I was watching the highlights on Saturday night. I'd seen some people online suggesting it was like it was maybe the wrong decision, but when you see it, like, no, it's a red card all day. It's I mean, I maybe gets the ball beforehand, but I mean, you can't just you can't let a player get away with it. It's a high-footed challenge right in the side of Halliday's leg, and as you say, his foot's planted. I mean, he's lucky it's not more serious than it was. So I don't think there's no dispute in that one. It was a red card all day.
Yeah, and obviously Ginnelly, his sort of petulance at the end of the game cost him. Really just sheer stupidity at the end of the day. I mean, I suppose it was right at the end of the game. It wasn't going to matter too much in terms of the result. I think it was the last minute stoppage time, but it was pretty stupid from him, and you can't really have any complaints either. All right, we'll go to Paisley. St Mirren nil, Hibs 1. A very tight one in Paisley, but Yuan for Hibs was a match winner in the end. The Highbuys now overtake St Mirren in the table. Hendo, it's a very good win for Hibs. Is this maybe a sign that Hibs and Lee Johnson are maybe on the way up? They're unbeaten in the last 5 Premiership games now, which is pretty good. I think it's the best run under Johnson this season. A very difficult venue to win at as well this season. St Mirren's home form has been exceptional. It's a brilliant win, and maybe signs that they're on the up again.
It was definitely a good win. The only game that I've seen Hibs this season that I've genuinely sat and thought, that okay, they're starting to maybe turn a corner, was obviously last week out against Aberdeen.
Aye.
But then you had the point against County where they were unlucky not to win. The 3 points on Saturday there. So if again we've kind of said that it's been a running theme throughout this sort of show today, is that it's come at a good time. It's coming at a good time.
Yeah.
So should I say? Hibs weren't exactly prolific in the transfer window in January. They left their supporters maybe, dare I say, a wee bit disappointed that they never brought in another centre half.
No.
So for them to go, as you say, 5 unbeaten, will definitely give Lee Johnson a bit of breathing space, because I know that he was definitely under a bit of pressure. El Sacchio, I think, was how it was dubbed against Aberdeen, which is brutal, to tell you the truth. I think that's absolutely brutal. But yeah, it's bottom. I mean, he's got a hell of a lot of good grace for that Aberdeen game. Josh Campbell was unreal. So yeah, good 3 points against, as you say, a difficult team to beat this season. Stephen Robinson's got St Mirren playing very well, especially at home. So I'm sure Lee Johnson will have left Paisley thinking, thinking his players have really kind of started to understand what he wants from him, and that can only be a good thing.
Yeah, and just on St Mirren, Aidan, I mean, as we say, the home run comes to an end finally. I suppose they'll actually be really disappointed, because, this was the chance to maybe open up a big gap between, well, not a big gap, but I think it was maybe 5 points would maybe open up if they won the game in Paisley. That's not a bad gap to have at the top of the table going into February. So I suppose it was a missed opportunity for St Mirren and Stephen Robinson.
Yeah, they would have definitely seen it that way, and I think it was. I mean, it was always. I was quite interested in that game going into the weekend, just because, as Hendel was saying, it was a game that might be. So given how Hibs have been playing in recent weeks, it was maybe a game that they saw coming at the right time for them to try and push on a bit more, especially with this home record that St Mirren had. But St Mirren would have fancied their chances as well. And I think quite rightly, given how they've been at home this season. So undoubtedly it'll have been a disappointment for Stephen Robinson not to get the win there. I mean, I think they're in I'm just seeing here, they're still in 6th position at the moment, but I would put a bit of daylight between them, as you say, between them and Hibs and Aberdeen, I suppose, as well. So it was something that he'll obviously try and rally them again and get them going again, try and get that home record sort of solid again. But yeah, it's probably something that they'll look back on with disappointment, I think, at the end of the season. It's one of those games that could be, potentially have an effect. Yeah,
good point. Alrighty, the last game of the weekend, it was Livingston 3, Kilmarnock 1. A disastrous day for Derek McInnes. But then again, Livy's season just gets better and better under David Martindale. I took this one in. Livy were brilliant in the first half. They absolutely battered Kilmarnock. They raced into a 3-0 lead. Some really excellent goals as well, actually, I must say. They took their foot off the gas a wee bit in the second half. Kelly were probably the better team, actually, but Kelly left it too late to mount a comeback at all. But just on Livy, Pendo, it's just incredible what Martindale's doing. With the budget Livy have, not as big as the other teams in the league. They've got strikers as well, Newbley and Anderson. I mean, they were terrific on Saturday. And I would feel that they would fit right in, maybe a Hearts or a Hibs. They might not be needing these sort of options at this point, maybe more Hibs than Hearts. But, those kind of quality players, Newbley and Anderson, they're brilliant. Really punching above their weight. Livingston just now, they're really defensively sound too. Just a well-oiled machine, and Martindale's get the best out of them, isn't he?
Well, every time you watch an interview with a player nowadays or a manager nowadays, it's like, you can't be firm with your players now. You can't treat them like adults nowadays, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
I think David Martindale's completely bucking that trend. If you heard the audio that came a few weeks ago from the changing room, he's doing a fantastic job. The guy, I mean, what can you say? I mean, whatever you think of him as a coach or a manager or how he gets his players playing, it doesn't really matter. He's getting them playing. I mean, they're fourth in the table. Again, they've got a really small budget. As again, Postecoglou said, as David Martindale says every single week. But why would you not say that if you have the smallest budget in the league? And you're playing out your skin. You've got your players flying. You've got this sort of air of you've got a motivation among the squad to do their best for you, to do their best for each other. there's obviously a strong changing room there.
They're obviously playing for the manager. You can see that.
They love him.
And that's we've spoken about inexperienced managers here today, and we've spoken about experience versus inexperience. David Martindale's not an experienced manager.
Yeah.
In his own right. I mean, he worked under David Hopkin before he went through a bit of a trials and tribulations to be allowed to take the job on. He's taken it on, and he's done far better than I would argue most people would have thought he would do. And I mean that is no disrespect to him at all. I just mean people might have saw him come in as an assistant head coach as opposed to he's a manager in his own right, and look at the job he's doing. And you talk about, we've spoken as well about transfer windows. I mean, talk about a guy who's brought in players to fit exactly what he needs, exactly what he wants. Tough, difficult to beat, difficult to roll over defenders, fast players in attack, smaller guys, okay, maybe small with Stephen Kelly and Bruce Anderson, but then you've got Joe Nobley on the wing who can play up front, and he's sort of powerful, and it's been unbelievable, Libby. I don't think anyone would begrudge them fourth place in the table at all. They've been superb, and again he seems to know exactly what he's got at his disposal and exactly how to get the best out of them.
It would just be incredible if they managed to qualify for the European places.
Tony Macaroni.
Oh, brilliant! Just on Kelly, Aidan. I mean, I suppose during the week they got up to 9th. With that win over Dundee United, a really big game as well. They got the win. Really poor on Saturday, as I said. I suppose the saving grace really for Kelly is that everyone else lost around about them. All the 4 bottom teams lost. There's no real movement at the bottom. They still sit in 9th place. I suppose I'll just ask a general question for you sort of both. If you had to pick, just to finish off the live, if you had to pick the 2 that would finish in 11th and 12th just now, and if you've got a reason for that, then please give it. What would you go for? Aidan, I'll start with yourself.
You can see the trepidation in my face there. Thanks for that.
Tough questions on this show.
Well, I think I would go Motherwell for 12th. Just the way things are going at the moment, I just think, as I was saying earlier, I just think if I was a Motherwell fan, you'd be really concerned at the moment with how things are going. So I would probably say they'd be 12th, and then I don't know. I could see it's so tight. I know it'll
probably go down to the wire. I think it'll
go down to the wire. I think personally, I think it'll be between Kilmarnock and Dundee United probably for 11th. I think as I was saying earlier, I think Ross County will be okay now. And I think I know St Johnstone are not that far ahead, but I think again they should be okay. I think they've got enough of a cushion, and they've shown that they can get sort of results when they need them. And as you say, just with being so tight and the other teams that are around them as well, maybe not picking up points as frequently, I think where St Johnstone are on the table, they should be all right. So, yeah, I think it will go down to the wire for 11th, probably between Kilmarnock and Dundee United. And I would say maybe Kilmarnock will just edge it, but it'll be very close.
Hibs and Aberdeen.
I thought we were friends, Aidan. I really did. But it could come down to maybe even goal difference at the end of the season. That's how tight it is.
I think it will be I was joking a minute ago, Hibs and Aberdeen, but I think they'll be all right. I think we'll get a last day shootout.
Yeah, I think so.
Which is always exciting, unless you're a supporter of one of the 2 teams that are shooting out.
It'll be frightening.
I'm going to stick with what I've thought previously about Stevie Hamill. I think he'll be okay. I think Motherwell, well, I don't know. I'm going to shoot myself in the foot here, no matter what. But I've already declared that I think he will be a good manager down the line. So why not for the end of the season? I'm going to go Ross County and Kilmarnock.
Right. Any reasons for Ross County at all? They go against Aidan's? Because he's tipped them to stay up.
Yeah, let's say that, because it keeps me out of trouble.
But they have recruited pretty well on sort of paper.
No,
Really.
they have.
They are quite into this in January for strengthening the squad.
They've recruited well enough.
Pretty well.
And Malcolm Mackay is obviously a decent manager. I don't know if they can go away and get the points that they need.
Right.
I'll say Ross County. And Kilmarnock, I've watched them once or twice. And okay, it's not the 25 games that they've played clearly, but I've not really been too impressed with Kelly. Anytime I've seen them.
They haven't won away from home yet, Hendo. They haven't won a game away from home. I think they're really, really relying on their home form, which is actually pretty good, on the sort of whole. So I think they're really relying on winning points.
The only thing, I see I've watched them once or twice. I've watched them a few times, to be fair. They looked okay at Hampden against Celtic in the semi-final. Yeah. There was moments in that game. There was probably longer than moments. I think in the first half, early doors, they looked to really get at Celtic. I think Rory McKenzie had a shot that was quite well saved with Joe Hart. Yep. So they do have it in them to kind of create chances, and Daniel Armstrong has been probably the standout.
He's been good.
But we talked about it earlier on. If Derek McInnes can kind of pull into his bag of tricks and use the experience that he does have to maybe tinker some of the away, I don't know, the away sort of philosophy that he has to kind of get them out of their rut, then you never know. But I put my neck on the line and said that I think Stevie Hamill could come good. And I think Dundee United, their squad, I know it's the old cliche, and I even wrote about it this morning, but I just think their squad is probably stronger on paper anyway than the other two, Kelly and County, in my opinion.
And I suppose Dundee United, they did go in a wee run, sort of Christmas and New Year time, so they might have that potential to do that again and, pull themselves a wee bit away from the bottom. They
looked decent, as we said earlier on. They looked okay against Hearts at the weekend there, and that was a wee time. So it's one of the harder stadiums to go to. I'll stick with Kelly and Ross County, and their sort of 11th and 12th is probably interchangeable. I'd be interested to see towards the end of the season how wrong I am, but
it's a toss of the coin at the end of the day right now, lads. And as we say,
definitely
it'll go to the wire, and it could come down to goal difference. So I suppose it's really exciting for the teams that are not really involved. For
everybody who's watching,
absolutely frightening for the supporters.
Another show for those concerned.
For those supporters, but I suppose we'll see what happens come the end of the season. But it's been a long one today. But Mark, Aidan, enjoyed it. Thanks very much for joining me on the live. For everyone else watching on YouTube and Facebook, thanks for joining along as well. The episode will be on YouTube and Facebook anyway for you to watch it anytime you want. So feel free to do that. But yeah, for now, thanks very much, Aidan and Mark, for joining me, and we'll be back very soon for another live in the future. But thanks for watching, and we'll see you all very soon.